Mike, you really do. Are we ready? Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday, January 5th, 2015 City Council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we'll have a prayer by Father Michael Wensing from Holy Name Church.
It did occur to me before I read my prayer that there is, at the end of Daniel, a canticle of creation, where much of creation is to give praise to the Lord. There's one line that's rather disturbing. It says, "Ice and snow, praise the Lord." So we have to conform ourselves to that too. Psalm 106 proclaims, "Give thanks to the Lord is good, for his kindness endures forever. Who can tell the mighty deeds of the Lord or proclaim all his praises?" Let us pray. God of life and love, we pray for our city of Watertown. Grant us peace in our community, honesty in our trading, hospitality and warmth in our welcoming, integrity in our planning and civic life, that the common good may prevail and your kingdom of righteousness and justice be affirmed. We ask this in your name, Lord God, who are the way, the truth, and the life. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, at this time, Shelley, if you want to do roll call for us.
Albertson. Bueller. Danforth. Manti. Meisenheimer.
Here.
Riefenberger.
Here.
Roby.
Here.
Solom. Absent. Tupper.
Here.
Wilkins. Thank you.
Yeah, John is at a convention in Minneapolis for his work at the Ramcotas and Minervas. So at this time, I will look for a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Motion by Bruce, second by Don. Any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, approval of the agenda. At this time, I would like to add James Hardy, Fred Hardy's letter that we have from him to number 13C. So I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Moved by Al, second by Bruce. Any questions on the agenda? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3, retail on sale liquor license renewal for Zeus Inc., doing business as Second Street Station for the calendar year 2015. At this time, I will open up the public hearing if there's anybody here that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and I will look for council action. I need a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Al, second
Dan.
by Randy. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan, second by Randy. Is there any questions, any discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4, ordinance number 1501, amending Title 8 regarding the powers and duties of the Civil Service Board within and for the city of Watertown. I will tell you that we were going to have Stanton do this, and Stanton is home with the flu tonight, just so everybody has an idea. He thought he could come, but I said, no, you stay away. So on this is the second reading. This particular ordinance or amending this Title 8, what it does, it really just kind of, as you remember, we've already voted upon in our budget process that we were no longer going to have the Civil Service Board do that. So what this will do is actually change the powers of the Civil Service Board, and we're no longer going to use that for hiring and purposes such as that. So I will look for council action on this. I'll need a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mike, second by Bill. Any questions on this?
There's a point, I'm trying to find it in here, on where it talks about punishment.
and this is really a legal Stanton issue, but it talks about the punishment in here, but if one of those items that's listed above in that area occurs and there is, does it state in here that if this, if there were a legal action against them that is above and beyond what we state punishment is, that obviously overrides this?
I'm trying to find where you're looking at, Mike.
Well, I'm trying to find it too here. There's a point in here on punishment. Yeah, well, I don't know what page it is. It says, any person violating any of the provisions of this title shall, upon conviction thereof, be punished by a fine of not to exceed $200 or imprisonment for not exceeding 30 days. But there's some things in there that they could do that might go to a court system, and then this wouldn't apply, correct? It might be a Stanton issue, but
It's, Shelley, can you help me out on this?
I would assume so, that this would be something that, when he goes to court once a month, that he would prosecute for. It's never come up, we've never had an issue with it, and I think the reference is standard with that fee structure that he has every year, and it's a standard fee, but if there was something that would end up being farther than that, I think it would be taken as far as it needs to criminally, but as far as I know, in the 11 years I've been here, we've never,
We may-
ever even had a discussion about what that would be or that it's ever happened.
no, somebody unemployed would have done something. It almost seems like we're missing a statement in there, that at a minimum, this is what it would be.
There's no changes to it,
so Okay. It just seems strange, but
I don't have that answer, and when Stanton gets back to work, we can actually ask him if we have to make a change on this, we can certainly do that. And I'll have him get an answer to you guys on that question. Is that fair enough?
I had one question.
I do.
Page 18 out of 76 in your packets, it's 8.0306, hearing on such appeal. Is this a scenario where an employee is rightly or wrongly, they feel wrongly terminated? And it's asking for the city attorney to represent that employee? It seems like there's a conflict in there. Am I reading that wrong?
I think this is written, there is a grievance process that's written into our union contracts, and there's a step 1, a step 2, a step 3. The step 3 of that grievance process, if they go to their immediate supervisor and don't get the answer they want, they can appeal to the mayor. If they don't get the answer that they want, they can appeal it to the Civil Service Board. And basically, they give their appeal, and the Civil Service Board gives their rendering. What they ask the city attorney to do is to basically give what management's position is for opposing, and where the kind of the conflict is, where we see our interpretation is versus what the employee and the union representative sees their position as, and then they make a ruling. If they don't like that, then they can take it to an administrative law judge in Pierre. So I'm assuming that
Well,
The-
it says may be represented, so it's saying they can use the city attorney if they want to, but they don't have to? Because it seems like you,
Right, and usually they will have a union representative with them. Like I said, in the 11 years I've been here, it's been, they put it in writing with their union representative, and what Stanton has been asked to do is to give the Civil Service Board information on management's decisions thus far, and where we're getting our information from is kind of where we hang our hat on to why we're not agreeing with the employee at that point. I've never seen it happen the other way.
So does this mean that there will be no future appeal to Civil Service Board since there is no board?
No, there is a board. What the board isn't being used for is for the hiring practice. Since we have it in our union contracts, they still need to be that step 3 process in the grievance procedure. They're just not used in the hiring practice anymore. That's done internal through HR. And you saw in the personnel policy, in that appendix, that's kind of the new hiring practice that's taking the place of the civil service exams from your recommendation to not.
Right, and I have gone through 2 grievance processes where we've actually sat down with the employee, with the union, and with Stanton. And that's kind of how our policy has gone so far with that grievance. So she's absolutely correct. This is just taking away the hiring practice of the board, but the board will remain intact. Nothing in that instance would change.
I think, Don, I think this thing's referring, are you in 8.0306? Okay, it says the officer from whose action such appeal has been taken. So that would be the department head or whatever, correct? They would be represented by the,
Yeah, that was my question. It was confusing. Them versus the person filing the grievance.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because the grievance person is represented by the union. Yeah, the union is there for them. Any other questions?
When we changed, because we had this, what, did we change it, when we had the civil service, it was 5, and then we made it 10? But now that we've eliminated that, do we have any kind of limit? That whole limit thing goes away now? With the current
Correct.
process?
Yep, it's just changed to, they have to at least interview 5, up to 10. And it's not done by a test, it's done internally by their applications.
Any other questions from this side of the room? No? Okay. So hearing none, I will look for, we have a motion, a second, I believe, on the floor. I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, vacation of an alley in Block 9 of Kemp's Addition, Resolution 15-01. And Jeff, this is for you. I will, before we get started, open the public hearing for anybody. So the public hearing is open. If there's anybody here that wants to speak in favor of or against this, this is your chance.
Okay. It's this alley right here that I'm going over with the cursor. And we got a petition from the adjacent landowner to the north. They wanted this alley to be vacated so that they could build a second unattached garage without having to go to the Board of Adjustment and ask for a side yard variance. Some facts about this property. This alley was only platted halfway through the block. It wasn't platted all the way through. And this alley has never been constructed as an alley. And the petitioner did get all adjacent landowners to sign his petition, saying that they were okay with the alley being vacated. And the Watertown Municipal Utilities requests that if this alley is vacated, that a 10-foot utility easement be retained on the easterly 10 feet. And this came by way of the Plan Commission, and the Plan Commission did recommend approving the vacation as requested.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And is there something that you wanted to?
Well,
speak
I
on,
just was
Mike?
listening to the meeting ahead of this, ahead of the council meeting, and we were talking about, you were, not me. We're talking about vacating alleys, because how does he get to his back alley once he builds that garage in there so that he can park his camper behind his house? I'm not trying to stop this whatsoever. I just want you guys to look at what's happening to our city, and you're worried about them parking campers on the street and in the driveway, but you're locking them off from getting into the alley. I used to take my garbage out to the alley, now I take it out to the front street, and I always thought this was crazy.
I think this alley is a little different than what we're accustomed to, Mike. It isn't an alley that goes north and
But-
south. It's an alley that goes east and west
This is true.
on here. And it only goes east-west only a half a block, which
But
is kind of.
If you look at that alley right there, and I've got nothing against this, I don't even know who it is. The only thing I'm saying is that alley goes up to 1, 2, 3, 4 lots that are in the middle of that street.
I think it only goes between 2 lots, does it not, Jeff?
It goes between 2 lots, but it goes to 4.
But this alley has never been constructed. If you drove by it, all you would see is grass, and
Right.
you might not even realize it was an alley.
I think if you go to the further east, if I'm not mistaken, between 15th or it could be 16th and 17th. I believe that alley's been vacated also.
Didn't we just have
There was one in
one of these 6 months ago or something in this area? Or is this one coming back again? Because it seems like
This
this
one
came.
isn't coming back. I don't, we have done alley vacations before.
Seems like this was on the agenda.
Not necessarily in this area, but we did one a few months ago on Highway 20 where Cenex is located. We vacated part of that alley, and we also recently vacated an alley that is just south of the zoo.
Okay, it just seemed like I remember seeing this plot come up once before. When this gets vacated, then I presume that gets split in half and either party gets half of the.
Yep, it'll get split right in half, and then
And
the
what-
north and the south property owners. will
And
each
what's
get
the
that.
width of the alley now then?
20 feet,
So they each get 10 feet.
yes.
Does this increase the value of their property then?
Taxable property would be bigger.
I'm not 100% sure. I would assume so, but I don't really know.
And I know this is, you know, like, kind of the wrong time to do this, but Mayor, I'd mentioned to this once before here a little while ago. I'm not so sure that what we shouldn't be doing is we shouldn't be coming up with some kind of a per square foot fee that's associated with the vacation of city land. We may have paid for this, who knows that, way back when. And they're getting the use of this land, it becomes their property, and they're getting it for free. And I'm not so sure that there shouldn't be some kind of fee attached, not just a fee to get it, but a square foot fee that's attached for the requesting of and receiving the vacation of properties.
I
In other
don't,
words,
I don't totally disagree with that, but they've also been maintaining that piece of property for a number of years at no cost to the city, so.
What were the easements that were going to be required for the utilities?
Just a 10-foot utility easement, and they requested that because currently between all these properties, there is a utility easement, so that if this was vacated, there'd be a utility easement there, so that way it connects all the way through the block running north and south.
So that really basically takes up everything they've gained from getting the alley. They
Well,
have-
it's just a 10-foot easement right here. It won't take up very much of the alley. The reason the petitioner is requesting this is because they want to build a garage right in this area. I mean, they'll stay out of the easement, and they'll meet the side yard setback.
According to your map there, it looks like they're already using part of it already, so.
That he claims was there before. It's just a foundation, and he does not intend to use that at all as part of his new building permit that he wants to pull. But he says that's just a foundation that's right here, and
That whole area up there, Randy, there's, if you look at the lot lines, there, it's all messed up. I mean, there are lot lines, right through people's houses, or right on their, next to their house, so.
Yeah, that's just right over by where I live, so I'm pretty aware of it, so.
Okay, I think what we'll do here is we will close the public hearing. And at this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion purposes.
So moved.
Motion by Randy, second by Bill. Is there any other questions you guys want to ask on this, this little alley here, over here?
Yeah, I would agree with Mike, you know, I mean, other than the fact that they paid to maintain it over the years, but we really need to look at that because we're just giving away city-owned property quite often, and we need to look at that for future to try to set something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the point is well taken that, you know, if you just are giving away city property, which it is, you know, there should be some fee attached. So I think we will look into the future on that and see if there's something we should come up to and have some kind of a fee. That's a good point, Mike. So, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Jeff. Number 6, approval of the 2015 salary resolutions, resolution number 1502 and 1503. I think what I'll do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion purposes. Motion by Beth, second by Bill. And Is there any questions that you have for Shelley on the salary resolutions?
I'll just tell you the reason that everybody has, the first two sheets are new is, when we got to looking, there were two, salaries that did not get adjusted from the previous year, so we wanted to make sure that we had all of those correct. Everything else in the rest of the pages was correct. Also, all of these reflect a one-step increase, which equals 2%. And the reason for that is because the sales tax increase for the dates that we used per the union contract was not greater than 3%. So that second step, which would have been an additional 2%, was not granted. And then the salary for the mayor and alder people also reflects a 2% increase, which is the same as the employees. So, and then the other change was we moved the minimum wage to the $8.50 from what we had previously to reflect the new legislation as of January 1. So those are kind of in a nutshell. And also on the 1503, that's just basically the three unions, and it shows what the job title is and the different grades. They follow the exact same grading system, 25-step wage matrix, and it's determined the same. So if you have any questions on either one of those, I can answer them.
Okay, any questions for Shelley on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 7, first reading of ordinance number 1502, amending section 2.0102, regulating the permitted locations of alcoholic beverage establishments within and for the city of Watertown. If you recall, this came up a couple of times in this last year where people have actually opened up, like a church or an establishment like that in a commercial area. And what made people nervous is when if you do that, have the church, well then nobody could actually open up an establishment that might serve alcohol beverages. So what we did is we actually changed that a little bit. Instead, where it goes on here, if you look at that, it says if the premises are within 100 yards measured by the regular and usual path of travel from any door or exit of any church, school, boys or girls club, or community-sponsored recreation center, provided, however, that this restriction shall not apply. And here's where the change came in. When any church, school, boys or girls club, or community-sponsored rec center is located in a C1 community, commercial, or C3 highway commercial district, or the business then authorized by such license has been continually so authorized at the same location from a time prior to the establishment of one of the organizations mentioned herein. So what it basically does, it allows, let's use as an example, the New Hosanna Church just bought over there on Jensen Avenue. Isn't that Hosanna? Or, no, I'm sorry, not Hosanna. Whatever church, I'm sorry, folks. The church that's over on Jensen Avenue that just purchased that building. If somebody wanted to open up a liquor establishment that sells beer or alcohol within that 100 yards, they're able to do that. Whereas prior, you move a church in and it's shut off to everybody. So this will still allow those people to have that establishment if it's in the C1, the commercial, or the C3 highway district. Sure. Fire away.
Why wasn't this applying to all commercial districts? So you got C1, C3, why not C2?
You know, I can't answer that. I know that it was something that has been discussed. I don't know why C2 wasn't in there. I would think, just by looking, I mean, we got C1, we got commercial, we got C3. I don't see any reason why it would not.
I'm not sure, but I meant to read through C2
Yeah.
to figure out why it may not apply, but I'm not sure of that.
And I think that's a good point. And it is first reading, but I think what we'll do is we'll bring that up to Stanton, because Stanton wrote this, and we'll just ask him why not C2.
The only other thing too, Mayor, is in that 2.0102 under location, he needs to change the word either in the first sentence there? Because there's only one. There's only one item below it, not more than one.
Either on or off sale, isn't that what they're saying?
Either the following conditions in the, right up here. Under either of the following
either,
conditions.
either.
There's only one condition, so,
Okay.
so, as long as it's correct in anyone.
Yeah, there's two either's in that sentence.
Okay. We can do that. We'll have Stanton correct those. And we'll ask him on the C2 why that's not included in there, so that's a very good point. All right, moving along. Number 8, approval of updated personnel policy manual. I hope that you all opened that up and read it word for word. It's a very interesting. Shelley, if you wanna take this one, you're sure welcome to do it.
I don't have a lot to say. If you guys have any specific questions on any article or anything like that, I can address those. But basically, a committee of us got together and went through one individually at a time, and always good to do that. Basically, a lot of the changes we made were to comply with federal regulations, to keep that up to date. Changes in the civil service ordinance, which is what you guys just approved. Clarifications. There are things that we've been doing as past practice, and we've just never put them into writing. And so some of those is just to clarify, and it's nothing new that we came up with. It's just what we've always been doing and has never been down in writing. And it's just always good when people change and processes change that you kind of have something down in writing. So we tried to do that. Or if there was any interpretation questions that we came across in the last couple of years since the last revision, we tried to make sure that the language was clear as to how we interpret that to be and clarify some things. Also, anytime the union contracts change, which we did have some changes in how we work a 40-hour week, certain overtime issues, also with a couple holidays. We want the personnel policy to reflect that because just for ease in payroll, we try to have union and non-union exempt staff who goes with the personnel policy mirror that so that we don't have so much confusion. And basically, we gave you that link, and I'll ask for a motion to approve the updated policy, but I'm here for any questions you guys might have.
Shelley, we just talked about the civil service changes. Any cross-reference or cross-pollination there?
Yep, we did have to change where we mentioned exam, and we don't do exams anymore. We clarified a little bit on, and then we changed it. It used to be civil service and then exempt, and we changed it to exempt and non-exempt staff. We just kind of clarified that type of stuff and then took out anything that had to do with testing as part of the hiring process.
Okay, I think, Shelley, at this time, what I'll look for is a motion and a second for any discussion purposes. So moved. Motion by Beth, second by Don. Any questions that you have for Shelley now on the personnel policy? I know it was a long, tedious job, and you guys put a ton of hours in it, really, you did, and I thought you did a tremendous job.
When was the last time it was updated, Shelley?
2010, I believe, is when the last time. And Lee is here. He was one of the committee members. Don is here. He was one of the committee members. And thank you very much for being part of that process as well.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, authorization for the mayor to sign a contract with Pitts Construction for the construction manager at-risk services. What this will do now is, we've hired, what's the guy's name that, for our, Tegra, yeah, Dick Strasberg with Tegra as our boots and eyes on the ground. And now what we've done is we've actually hired AIA, or Pitts Construction, to be our construction manager. They will go out and they will get the bids and bring this whole process of our multi-purpose center, Watertown Multi-Purpose Center, under under the dollars that we're hoping for. So what I will look for is a motion and a second for any discussion purposes on this. And a motion by Bill and second by Mike. Is there any questions on this?
At this point, there's nothing been filled in for the total amount, looks like. That's left to be determined.
For the Pitts construction?
No, for the project.
Right, yeah, and that's what his job will be, is to bring it under budget for us.
But we need to have we need to establish an amount at some point in time.
Well, I think there's been an amount established.
There
I
isn't
mean,
in the contract as I read it, though. I didn't see it. That's left blank and what,
No, the dollars are there that we are not able to go over a certain amount of the $24 million on this project. And that's what we're counting on Mr. Pitts to do, is to bring us in under that budget.
That would also include his fees also, right? Just to stay within that 24 million.
I believe that is correct. Certainly hope this comes in where we're hoping for. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 10, consideration of bids for a Type 1 ambulance for the fire department. I see, Don, you're here. And also in your presentation, Don, I know that question was asked of the chief about getting a refurbished unit.
Yes.
And if you can look at that for us and give us some updates on what you're doing.
Absolutely. Just briefly, we went to out to bid, I think December 3rd range, and gave it about a 3-week process to let those potential vendors out there look at our ambulance, that the Type 1 specs that we developed. Now, we put a comprehensive team together to identify the specs of our current ambulances we have, the fleets we have. We currently have 4 Type 3 ambulances at Watertown Fire Rescue and 1 Type 1. And that Type 1 is obviously the one we received 2 years ago, which is a 4-wheel drive ambulance. And some of the objectives that we looked at were obviously longevity. How long can we get a service out of this ambulance? And we felt 10 years was really a factor with 200,000 plus miles on the chassis. Another thing we looked at, obviously, was safety, operational safety, not only for our staff, but for the patients that would be inside it. And some of that, with the specs, we looked at airbags inside the front chassis. Obviously, most all come with it, but also with the fact that there's occupancy, patient restraints and airbags as well in the back of the vehicle. And also with that came, we're looking at rollover protection for the ambulance as well. The ride factor was always important. I think some of you folks up here have even actually rode in the back of the ambulance. We have a current air ride system in the Type 1 4-wheel drive that we have now. The new ambulance that we spec'd out has a liquid air ride. And, you know, from my understanding, when you're talking trucks, it helps give it a little better ride with it as well. A couple of other things we looked at were the potential of refurb, like the mayor just alluded to. And this particular ambulance has the ability to be refurbished. The ambulances we're trading in right now do not have that capability, especially the 2007 Medic 3 Ford ambulance that we're using on the trade-in here. We also have another ambulance that will have to have a trade-in as well at some time. But the fleet that we have, the 2009 Horton ambulance, is a refurb potential, which is a Type 3. It's a van type. A 2011 Horton is also a van type that can be a refurb. And obviously the last ambulance we received in 2013 has a potential for refurb as well. This particular ambulance, we did the same thing. We researched it enough to where the specs would allow us to do the refurb with this new bid that we put out there in specs. So with that, as you can see, the bid tab is shown here. We received 2 bids on December 22nd. First one being from North Central Ambulances Service, and it's a Braun Chief XL ambulance that is a Type 1. Their bid came in at $216,125, as you can see. Our ambulance that we have, the 2007 ambulance, is going to give us around $7,000 on that bid, with the difference of being $209,125. And then, obviously, the second bid that we received was from Premier Specialty Vehicles. Their bid was $195,625, and then with a potential trade-in of $15,750 for that 2007, with a difference of $179,823. So the recommendation from Doug and I, we felt that we put enough research into this that with the difference on our CIP budget of being $205,000, we do recommend to go with the Horton ambulance for $179,000.
Okay, what I think I'll do, Don, is we'll look for a motion and a second for discussion purposes.
So moved.
Motion by Randy, second by Russ. Is there any questions you want to ask Don on, about the ambulance?
How do you come up, I mean, how did two companies come up with $30,000 difference?
You know, we were pretty shocked at that as well, Randy. I was really hoping to see a more closed gap on that. And we obviously put it on our city website, obviously for advertisement for bids. We also put it on our Watertown Fire Rescue website as well. We advertised for 3 weeks locally in the paper, and I even sent it out to 3 different vendors locally. So I thought we'd get a good shot of getting more people to bid it. That said, I don't know the answer to why it was such a broad difference in price. I really expected much closer than that.
Yeah, that's huge, so.
Don,
But you guys are Go
Are
ahead.
there any refurbished 2009 or 2011 vehicles? Those that somebody else has turned in, you said these, the ones that we have currently, the 9 and the 11, could be refurbished?
Those are
any-
type 3. Yes, they can be. Yes.
They can be, but are there any of them out for sale, or are there only new ones for sale that ultimately, you know, if somebody traded one in, I'm just wondering if anybody refurbishes them and they're very good, but
Typically, we haven't
2000.
seen a lot of those folks do that in our regional area. Matter of fact, Clark Ambulance Service, they looked at a refurb just recently this last summer, and the mayor and I, we looked at one as well. And what they did is they looked at our Type 1 ambulance that we currently have, that red ambulance that everybody sees, that Ford ambulance, and they fell in love with that ambulance, Dan, and they asked for my specs and went ahead and bought the same exact ambulance that is certainly sitting here as bid 2 for us currently right now. So, and their ambulance might be just a tad bit more expensive than ours as well. But to answer, is refurbs in this general area, I haven't seen any.
Don, is
Don,
it?
excuse me.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you. The organization from Iowa, I think was up here and showed you.
Aero Manufacturing, yes.
Do you not have, is there not an option to buy, I mean, a new chassis with a refurb back end?
Yes,
The
there
whole
is.
package from them?
Yes, there is.
And were they aware, I mean, did we even
They were
approach
aware-
them for a bid?
They were aware of the bid process. They did not bid the ambulance.
Do you know why that would be?
I don't know.
Because I know they're really interested in doing that.
They bid the ambulance over in Clark. They had 2 bids over in Clark. They had the Arrow and I believe obviously the Horton. And they came in just a little bit under the Horton ambulance, maybe by $4,000 or $5,000. So it wasn't a significant decrease for the spec ambulance that we have. The testing is really a big thing that I'm concerned with. There's a standard testing out there for the KKK, and it's a number KKK-1200. I think it's the spec on it. But the bottom line is, I'm not seeing a lot of that on their specs, but we can look into that as far as what their capability is. I'm assuming they meet all those standards by the recommendation for the ambulance services. So, to answer your question, I don't know why they didn't bid it, Bruce. I actually truly was expecting one from them.
So Don, when you need to replace an ambulance, it really isn't the ambulance itself, it's the chassis that's wore out, am I correct?
Absolutely.
So when you are looking at these particular models that you just said, the last one, like 2010, 11, 12, and the 13s, you will be able to just buy a chassis next time and slip the ambulance right on that, am I correct?
There'll
on
be a
that?
90 to 120 day turnover for that process.
But you'll be able to do that. You will
Yes.
keep the ambulance part of it, the box,
Correct.
and get a new chassis.
Our goal is to have 3 Type 1 4-wheel drive ambulances. And obviously, in the environment that we live in here, folks, I mean, it's pretty conducive. Look at today, we've had 2 transfers to Sioux Falls that were really deemed very necessary to get down to Sioux Falls for different procedures. And that 4-wheel drive ambulance is very imperative in cases like that. And we feel that it's important to still have 2 Type 3 ambulances, which is those van-type ambulances that we just talked about, that we can refurbish as well. And that'll bring the cost down 30, 40,000, we feel, on the Type 3. I'm not 100% sure what the price is for that Type 1 4-wheel drive, because we didn't, get one from a refurb.
Does this include that exhaust capture system on the ambulance?
Good question. No, it doesn't, because the new urea filtration system say we don't have to. Is that Randy probably has a little more information on that than I do, but they're telling me that isn't necessary.
Manufacturers claim that the air coming out of the tailpipe of a vehicle, diesel vehicle nowadays, is cleaner than the air going through the air breathers, so.
So we're hoping they're pretty right on track with that one. So saves about $8,200. Any other questions?
So this is the same company and brand and everything as the last Type 1 that we bought?
That's
right?
correct,
Do you know
Mike.
how this price compares to that?
What's that?
How does this price here compare to that?
To
You
last
know,
year's?
yeah.
Or 2 years ago?
Yeah, just out of
Uh,
curiosity.
Very similar. I think about a 5% increase from that time frame. Keep in mind, we're getting a $15,750 for a trade-in. I went and did some checking. It didn't look like we should get more than 10 on the trade-in, so I thought we did pretty well there.
I mean, we're all glad that it come in $30,000 lower. It just seemed a little odd, but, so really, in all reality, especially with these Type 1, you're looking maybe down the road is a long-term plan is to get some of these refurbished.
Most
Instead of-
definitely, that
yeah.
is the plan, that's direction. I think the chief and I and the mayor are pretty much on board with that. Anybody else?
Okay. Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks,
Thank you, Doug. Don? I have Doug written down. He was supposed to be here tonight. All right, number 11, authorization to advertise for bids for the 2015 alley assessment and cemetery paving projects. I don't know if you all had a copy of this, or if this is something that was just put in my packet. Maybe, Ray, you could put this up on the board?
Jeez, you got that right. I had a charge for this show.
Thanks, Dave. You're okay. I don't care what anybody says. You're okay. Yeah.
Dave will be sitting in the back from now on.
Where's Josh?
What we're gonna do here is construct 10-foot wide alley with 3-inch depth asphalt surfacing and 4-inch depth gravel based from 2nd Avenue South to 3rd Avenue South and between 7th Street East and 8th Street East. What we're expecting is that to go out for bids and see where this cost is coming in at. We're hoping that this next year will be a surprise with our cost per barrel of oil going down. Maybe the asphalt will come in at a cheaper price for us. So we're hoping for that. And then on the bottom one there is Cemetery Road. We're also looking at doing some updates at the cemetery, some of the roads that are in tough shape. So we're looking at going out for bids for that. And between the two, we're hoping by the engineer's estimate here is that it's gonna be, if it's right on the bottom of that, Dave, if you can slide up just a hair. That's pretty close. There you go. $61,300. That's what we're kind of hoping for. That'll come in now. We don't know exactly, where it'll be, but I would like permission to let these guys go out for bids on this project. So I will look for council, a motion and a second for any questions. I had a motion by Bruce, second by Don. Any questions on this?
The alley part will be assessed to the property owners,
I believe that is correct.
so part of that's gonna be
Yes.
billed. The
Yeah.
cemetery
But We're
part
trying to
is
get a price on
the
the
bulk.
cemetery. Yeah.
Yeah, the cemetery was a 2014 budgeted item, and when they
terrible
went
bills.
out to get quotes, it came in significantly higher. There's 25,000 budgeted, so they rejected the bids, and we're gonna carry it over into 2015. They're hoping that it'll come in better
Well,
this year.
this last year, they were so behind on blacktop, that didn't get done until snow was on the ground, so.
Yep, exactly. And in fact, the one road up on the north side there was done while there was snow there, so we got them to put some extra time on it, when they put it down in the conditions. So, okay, any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 12, authorization, same thing here. I don't have anything of visual for you on that. Authorization to advertise for bids for the 26th Street Improvement Project. Now, what we're expecting is, if you recall, this is the one on the east side on Highway 212, right across from, I believe it's Culver's. There is 400 foot of road that we're looking at putting in there. It's 40 foot wide. It'll be just a regular street. It'll have the curb, the gutter, and the asphalt. We're expecting it to come in at $245 a foot. And what I would like is for the opportunity to go out for bids on that. This here is also the same thing where the landowners pay for the street on their sides, except if you recall, you okayed us to put in the small part right in front on the, above the culverts. Yep. So I'll look for a motion a second, and we'll have discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Dan, second by Beth. Any questions on this?
Yeah, Mayor, I was with you when we met with the parties in part on this discussion. So was all of that resolved on this, that they agreed to their portion of this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Both parties are willing to pay their share of the street, and to get it all done, they're really excited to get this road put in. Any questions on that? We'll put this out for bids. Austin Engineering is going to take this out for bids for us, and he's got everything prepared. So I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 13, old business, consideration of amendment to the agreement for road maintenance and construction for the Manchon addition. I hope I said that right. Do you have a copy of that, or can you put this up on the board for me? Sorry about that. Try it again, David. That'll work. That's okay. Perfect. What we're looking at is the one there right at 954 South Lake Drive, and it goes up to 956 South Lake Drive, and then, of course, the 990 South Lake Drive. What we're looking at is for permission to do an addendum on this. What happened was, if you look at that road where we have the driveway, we'll consider that to the north side. When they originally did their building, they were to put the street or the driveway on the south side. That was the original intent. When it came time to talk to the utilities and to the building services to put it in, it was determined by the engineering department and the utility department to put it on the north side. It would have been less expensive, and all three actually homes are able to utilize that. There is somebody that is actually going to purchase a home. I believe it's on 950 South Lake Drive, the one to the very north. And what they're hoping to get is that this amendment on this what we're looking for is the legal description of how we got the road put in there, or the driveway. So our legal description currently is on the south side. We need to change the legal description for the folks to buy this place, to put it on the north side. So that's what I'm looking for tonight. So I will look for a motion, a second, for any discussion on this. Motion by Mike, second by Bruce. Any questions on this? it's kind of a paper trail that we just had to clean up on the thing.
There's nothing in regards to any financial obligation on that part that's changing here.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nope. No, not at all. This will just clean it up so that the owners of the driveway, actually, it's legally on where it's supposed to be.
Isn't this the area that just a few meetings ago that we vacated part of the road right away also?
It's exactly right. Where
Kinda
you
clean
see
that
that
up
come,
also.
where it kind of takes that V shape there, or it looks like a 412 roof pitch on the side of the street. Yeah, that's been
Okay.
straightened out.
All right.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 13C, this is the one where we just handed out the letter. What happened is that Mr. Hardy, Mr. Hardy, I could read this. Several months ago, he had Quality First Plumbing and Heating replace the ball cock on a toilet at 1316 13th Avenue Southeast. This is south of High V over there in the storage facilities down there. It's in the shop that's used mainly for storage, and on December 24th, we got a call from the Watertown Utilities advising me that there was some problems and the building seemed to be using a much larger amount of water than usual. I immediately went to the building and found that the ball cock was faulty and the toilet was continuously running. I shut off the water and called Quality First, who came and replaced it, taking care of the problem. I've since received my utility bill and have found that my water and sewer bill for this building is $823.81. This past year's monthly average is only around $38.92. Since I had no control over a faulty ball cock, I am sending this letter to see if I can get some relief from this bill, as is more than 20 times the norm. I would like to request a refund of the difference between the actual bill of $823.81 and the monthly average of $38.92. That amounts to a difference of $784.89, and thank you for your assistance. What happens here is that when people have an issue like this, they go out to the utilities and they ask them if they would take care of it for them. They say, no, we can't do it, but all you need to do is write a letter to the city and they'll take care of it. It's really not that simple. This is one of those deals where I think we really need to look at this. I mean, is it something that is the city's fault that this happened? Is it something that whoever put the facility together, the toilet in the first place? I don't know. This is kind of a question he's asking you folks if you would do it. Shelley, you got anything you want to add to this? We've had discussion on it.
No, the sewer policy states that if, and I have it here, if the city inappropriately charged the sewer services, a credit can be issued up to 6 months. Since it was something that was no fault of the city, the water did run, it did go down the sewer, it was processed. At that point, I no longer have the authority to do any credits. So at that point, he sent the letter to ask the governing body to make an exception to that policy and grant a credit. So that's kind of where it's at this point.
Shelley, is this something that might be covered by that person's insurance?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I was also asked, why you didn't go after the people that put in the faulty equipment. I do not know. He just called me this morning, said that he had this issue and was advised to call the city to see if we could issue a credit, and I told him that it was something that I could not do, that would have to go to the governing body, and he provided the letter. So I do not know if he contacted them or that they're willing to give him.
Didn't we just have a request like this?
I think we did a couple months ago.
How does this work? If say we did approve this, then what, the city writes a check to the utilities? Or the utilities
No,
writes
we
it off?
basically just say to issue a credit, and then they would issue a credit on their bill, and they wouldn't be responsible to pay that portion. It's actually, it's money that would come to the city if they would pay it, not the utilities. And if we would issue the credit, then they just wouldn't pay that portion of their bill.
We've had this before. What did we do before, Shelley? Do you recall how we dealt with this?
I think the one before was a new construction maybe, and there was something faulty, and kind of the same thing with a toilet that continued to run, and I do not believe that that was granted by the council, if I remember, because of the fact that the city did pay to process it, and then there was no error on the part of the city. And kind of the same discussion, should they be going after the people who actually put in the toilet in the first place to get them to compensate for the issue?
How much of this is the sewer and how much of this is the water?
I think the sewer surcharge is based on the water consumption. So because all that water went into the sewer, they charged for how many gallons went in there. And all of that is the sewer surcharge for all that water going in there.
This is just this additional cost for the sewer, nothing to do with the water.
I believe so.
Was the city negligent here?
No.
This is sewer and water.
Okay, I didn't see the bill. I just asked him to give me the cost of what the sewer surcharge was,
He
because
said
that's,
that my water and sewer bill
yeah.
was
And,
$8.20.
and I could clarify that, depending on what your
Because
decision.
My question was, what you referred to as you thought it was all sewer, and I understand the city part of that, but if it's, let's say that this
I
is
think it's gotta be
600
water.
water and 200 sewer, what happens if we say yes to
Well,
this?
we have, all you guys can do is say that you will approve the sewer surcharge. We don't have anything to do with water. I asked him to put in a letter what the sewer surcharge was that he's asking for the credit, and I was assuming that that was that number. I don't have a utility bill, so I don't know if that is the case, but all you can credit is the sewer surcharge, that additional amount for all of that water going into the sewer system.
But I don't think, without knowing that, I don't think we can approve this without knowing that. It seems like we're on a slippery slope if we approve this.
I'll ask the question again.
you know.
Are we negligent in any way? Because if we are negligent, then we have to step up.
Well, and
If
we're
we're
not.
not,
What
then
if
we
the
don't.
thermostat malfunctioned and this was all about heat that wasn't intended? I think we're on a slippery slope, and since we are not at fault, I think you almost need to deny it.
Okay, so what I will look for here, guys, is a motion and a second. However you want to write that motion, either to approve or to deny. I will look for that motion now.
I'll make the motion to approve it because that's what's being requested. So I'll make a motion to approve as is outlined in Mr. Hardy's letter, the full amount.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mike to approve, a second by Bruce. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion failed. Okay, number 14, is there any new business that we need to talk about? I do want to mention that next meeting is kind of out there. It looks like it's going to be on Monday, but it will be Tuesday, January 20th, because there is Martin Luther King Day. So make sure you write that down. Are there any liaison reports? Hearing none, is there any reason to go into executive session? I do have one reason to go in. I'd like to go into executive session for contract negotiations. I do not expect anything to come out of this meeting. So at this time, I will look for a motion, a second, to go into executive session. Motion by Bruce, second by Randy. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We are now in executive session. It shouldn't be too long.